Okay, class, chapter 9 is about surface area and volume. Um, when we talk about surface area, we're talking about the area, total area around a three-dimensional shape, laterally speaking, as well as adding on the area of the base or bases. And we're talking about volume, we're talking about the amount of stuff that fits inside of a three-dimensional object. And today we're going to be focusing on exploring solids in chapter 9, section 1. Okay. Here's all the different things we're going to be discussing today. I won't read through them, but here's the four objectives of four things we're going to focus on. Let's get right into it. First objective is knowing what a polyhedron is. Basically, a polyhedron is a three-dimensional space figure, a 3D object, maybe you know it as, that has polygons as its faces. So, if you're looking up in the top right corner here on this page, okay, what I noticed here is that this is definitely a polyhedron because it has polygons as its faces. This three-dimensional shape is made up of trapezoids um, and quadrilaterals. Okay, the vertices around it um, are all the points, if you will. That's a vertex, vertex, vertex. These are all the vertices of the three-dimensional space figure or polyhedron. Those are the vertices. Um, the edges are the segments that make up this polyhedron, which I'm now highlighting all of the edges in green. And then the faces. The faces are the two-dimensional shapes that make up this 3D shape. So I think the amount of faces, we got a bottom face, a top face. So I'm counting them all: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 faces make up this three-dimensional space figure. As we look at the chart here on the left, um, the pyramid is definitely a polyhedron. Prisms are polyhedrons. On the right, you'll notice that cylinders, cones, and spheres are not polyhedrons because they have curvature to it. Or maybe the way of saying it correctly is that they're not made up, all of their faces are not three-dimensional, are not made up of polygons. So all of the faces have to be polygons, which is not the case for spheres, cylinders, cones. Okay. Then we can get into the conversation on what does it mean for a polyhedron to be regular. If a polyhedron is regular, we're talking about all of the segments or edges are all congruent to each other. It's made up of regular 2D shapes to make the 3D shape. Okay. If we flip over to the next page, um, let's identify and name some different kinds of polyhedron. Um, if you look at the 3D shape on the left, I noticed that it's a prism. What are prisms? Prisms are 3D shapes. Um, well, prisms are polyhedrons that have two congruent polygon bases. So if we look here at the pentagonal prism, we notice that the bottom is a pentagon, and I'm highlighting the bottom base. And then there's a top pentagonal base. So these two bases are congruent. Okay, so this has to be a pentagonal prism. A prism is a polyhedron that has two congruent bases. Okay, um, the two bases of the prism are congruent polygons in parallel planes. Over here to the right, we have a pyramid. Pyramids only have one base, and the base of this pyramid is a triangle, so we would call this a triangular pyramid. Triangular pyramid because the base is a triangle. On the left, it's called the pentagonal prism because the two congruent bases are pentagons. Okay. Example 1, it says, tell whether the solid is a polyhedron. If it is, name the polyhedron and find the number of faces, vertices, and edges. Okay. A, is it a polyhedron? Well, the question is this. Is a three-dimensional space figure that is made up of polygons? Well, yes. All of the parts of this 3D shape are made up of polygons. It has polygons as its faces. So it is a polyhedron. So yes, it is a polyhedron in A. Second, find the number of faces. Okay, there's one face. There's two faces. The bottom is the third face. The side over here is the fourth face. and the back is the fifth face, and the top of this is the sixth face. So it has six faces. So there's six faces here. Next, how many vertices does this polyhedron have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it has 8 vertices. Okay, now let's count how many edges this polyhedron has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it has 12 edges. Last but not least, if you were asked to name this polyhedron, well, the two congruent bases I'm going to highlight here in blue, that's a rectangle. The base in the back is a rectangle. So if we were to name this, we would call this a rectangular prism. And be more specific, it's a right rectangular prism, okay, because the bases are perpendicular to the sides. So it's a rectangular prism. B. B is definitely also a polyhedron. It's a 3D shape that's made up of, that has polygons as its faces. If I ask you to name this polyhedron, well, the base of it has 6 sides. It's a pyramid, so we would call this a hexagonal pyramid. This would be a hexagonal pyramid. Its name would be a hexagonal pyramid. Okay? The number of faces, let's count them. There's 1. I'll try and do different colors. 2. Way over here on the side. It's 3. In the back would be 4. Over on the side would be 5. And then here would be 6. And then the bottom we count as a 7th face. So there's 7 faces. 7 faces. Of the 7 faces, one of the faces is actually the base. Okay? It's actually the base, the hexagon on the bottom. Okay, now let's count vertices. How many vertices does this hexagonal pyramid have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it has 7 vertices. Now let's count all the edges. We'll do that in green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's back there. 7. Then the side. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 12 edges for this hexagonal pyramid. Letter C, it is not a polyhedron. The reason why letter C is not a polyhedron, because its faces are not polygons. In fact, it doesn't even have any faces. It does have a base, but it doesn't have faces, and therefore there's no polygons as faces. So C is not a polyhedron. I think that actually concludes the lesson today. So for you guys, as I'm looking back, the first objective, know what a polyhedron is. We covered that. And second objective, identify the name of the polyhedron. We did that. You guys do not need to cover the third objective and the fourth objective. Thank you for tuning in today.